So I mean, at this time, and you're talking about like the theory crafting element of it, or at least alluding to that. This general studiousness, the fact that you're seeing things that maybe your brother wasn't able to. I imagine that that sort of level of insight led you to choose the tag Docta African, because it really does come through in the way that you in the way that you present yourself, in the way that you talk about your general philosophy of the game, and even just going down to breaking down how you choose your controllers, how you chose Hitbox. It really is about precision and, cutting out the variables. It is a very scientific way of thinking about it. Did that ever really occur to you? Or was it just kind of something that you thought sounded cool? Because it does seem to fit.
The name was a complete accident, and it was a meme. Uh, so,
I'm trying to be
when I was
thoughtful here,
younger,
man. Like, you gotta help me out.
no, people, it worked out, right? Because I'm a very logical person. I'm a very,
It did.
yeah, like I very objective person by nature, which comes with its strengths, comes with its weaknesses. Sometimes it makes me appear smarter than I actually am, but I think that it's just one of those things that I've learned to hone. And the name, the African part was the main part, right? That was like the primary name I had at first.
Hmm.
And there was no prefix, no adjectives added to it, nothing, right? No titles, just African. But before that, the reason it was African is because I played on my brother's account, because we were on PlayStation 3, and I didn't have access to any of the games. I didn't have access to my own account. So because I already had all this like save files on his account, I would only log into his account, including Street Fighter, because he didn't really play it.
Hmm.
So I remember when I play people, they wouldn't know if it's me or my brother. So I just told them, yeah, just call. They just called me kid. But then whenever I wasn't there, they'd make jokes. You know how like the gaming mics are, oh, it's the African kid. That's kind of how it started.
Oh, of
So it
course.
was African kid, right? And then it went into the my next name when I made my own account. Finally, I was like, well, I'll just stick with the African thing. How about African Beast, because I was a big fan of Daigo and I played Ryu, right?
Sure,
So I was
yeah.
African Beast at the time, and that was the start of it. And then when I found my offline scene, I was like, well, African Beast now sounds weird. When I made that name, it was just like, why not just pick something? But how about I just stick with the African thing? I'll just stick with that theme. So I just started juggling different combinations of random words in African that I thought were funny. It could have mattered at the time, because when I played Dan for a little bit in tournament, I'd do this little wiggle thing and then like DP out of nowhere. So it was like a joke, like the African wiggle. So I entered the next few weeks as African wiggle. I was Sergeant African. That was
Hmm.
Doctor African.
There you
But
go.
there was a Facebook group that we all had. I think most people who were in the FTC at the time were on Facebook, or they had Facebook groups of some kind. That was like the main way of communication, at least for me. So I didn't want to convolute or combine my personal life with the FTC. So I didn't want to join that group with my own personal account. I didn't want to like, smear that line. So
I
I
feel
was
like
like,
a lot
okay,
of people are
well,
like that, yeah.
yeah. So I made another Facebook, right? But I didn't want to do it under my name. That'd be pointless. That's not the whole point, is to kind of be incognito.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, my current name is Doctor African. That's my current meme name, right? At least for a few weeks, few months, whatever. And it was spelled properly and everything. But on Facebook, they said I can't use my official title as doctor in my name. So
Mm.
I misspelled it as a way to bypass that, as Doctor, instead of using the OR. It's where the joke about not using the hard R, that's where that comes from. Um,
Pretty sure it comes from somewhere else, but I mean, if
hey,
you want
hey,
to
at least
say
at least
that,
in relation to me, that's where that comes from.
fair enough.
And then the African part, I figured, well, if I've already come this far as to misspell the first part, I might as well just misspell the second part. But it turned out I couldn't use African as my last name anyway, like spelled properly, because yeah, they Facebook thought I was trying to use like a region of where I'm from as my last name.
Hmm.
So they're like, you can't do that. So I was like, well, I guess I'll just misspell both then. So that was just my name on Facebook. But in tournament, I just still entered as African, or I just entered as my name, just like my first name, or my traditional name.
So when did you make the
So in
switch?
this tournament, Summer Madness was my first tournament outside of my region, at least outside of my state. And I happened to win this tournament, but I wasn't watching the stream at all. The person who was in charge of the stream, Panda, shout outs to Panda if you guys know Solid X Panda or Panda X Gaming. He was like really big at the time.
Yeah.
He was running the stream, so he entered my name as Docta Afrikan as it's spelled on Facebook because he didn't check the bracket to see what I entered as. He just put my name in as he saw because that's what he know. He's seen me out at the local sometimes, but he just saw, oh, that's what his name is on Facebook, so that's his gamer name. He just entered that, and so I never checked the stream at any point, so I never had the chance to correct him, and I happened to win. This is the first tournament I went out of state, and I happened to win it, and a lot of people in the region saw that. Pretty much all the people in the region saw that, so the entire South saw that. So I was like, okay, can I go back now? Well, it doesn't matter because everywhere I go, I'm being called Docta Afrikan now. It's just too late. I'm stuck.
You
At least
just
that's what I thought at
shanghaied
the time.
into it. Yeah.
Yeah, if there was ever a time to change it, it was right then. Once I let it sit for another 2 weeks, yeah, it was done.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was pretty much that. And then I proceeded to enter KIT, which is my first regional level or major level tournament, depending on who was there that year. But I happened to make top 8 at that tournament. It was my first tournament that was like a big one, and I entered as Docta Afrikan, and I was like, well, there's definitely no going back now. So that's pretty much the story. The Docta part, it just so happened to be the descriptive word attached to African in that period in time. That was it.
It was meant for you, man. It was destined for you, perhaps. I don't know. That's that, funnily enough, and this is probably gonna get cut. That's actually how I stumbled into Stu the Announcer as well, because I started out in professional wrestling, and I was doing stuff out of the Monster Factory. I got to work with people who are in WWE and AEW right now. And when I started, I just did like my Twitter. I just made my Twitter Stu the Announcer to promote myself as an independent ring announcer and just get gigs. But when I started doing Smash commentary out of the laboratory in Hapro, PA, same place where Vermilion Series was running, if you're familiar with them. But they were just like, hey, what do you want to go by? It's like, I'll just go by my regular name. It's whatever. Like, I do that in wrestling anyway. So, like, my second or third time there, and I just got, like, hired to do a super major or something. Not a super major, but, regional. The guy who's running the stream is like, hey, by the way, I made your Twitter your tag, your Stu the Announcer, and you're on in 5, 4, 3. I'm like, wait, dude, what are you talking about? Hi, everyone. I'm Stu the Announcer, I guess. And
yeah, that's it.
It was such a weird thing. Like, it's funny how those things just kind of find you and how they stick. And now you just can't change it even if you wanted to.
Yep. No, I would have, I just with you on that one, I would have picked a much shorter name than Docta Afrikan. So I imagine Stu the Announcer is not the ideal length of name.
Not really, but then again, it's memorable, and other people memorize it. And maybe maybe sometimes it's a good thing when Destiny chooses your name for you, right? Like,
yeah, I agree. I think it's pretty hard to forget Docta Afrikan. At least maybe you won't remember the name, but if you see my name again, something in there should click. I agree. Like Stu the Announcer is pretty catchy.
Thank you. I appreciate that.